I wish you bluebirds in the spring to hear your song, a song to sing, and then a kiss. More than this, I wish you love.
Welcome to the Forgiveness Solution Podcast. I'm Reverend Misty Tyme. I'm so glad you're here with me today. And we are going to have such a great time. I have an amazing guest. But before we get to that, I want you to get a hold of me at revmisty.com. Please send me your forgiveness questions. And most importantly, I would love to hear your forgiveness stories. Please send them to me. Also, you can find this podcast at Sacred Stories Podcasts. So please like us and subscribe. Now, let's get into some forgiveness. Yep, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about real forgiveness in real stories. And today we're going to talk to Elizabeth Van Tassel. Why? Because she has lived real forgiveness. She's a real person who's had some amazing things happen in her life. But you know what? Real life causes us real forgiveness. And why? Because life is messy and things happen. But things happen when we least expect it. Yep, those expectations. Sometimes we go through life and we expect things to be, good. That doesn't always happen, at least in most lives I've ever experienced. Not one person that I have ever known has had a perfect life. And Elizabeth has had some real curveballs. So everybody, I'm going to have you welcome Elizabeth. And I'm going to let you know a little bit more about Elizabeth. Elizabeth Van Tassel, well, you know what? She is a resilience expert. I mean, really, a resilience expert. She's also a fantasy writer. She lives her life in diamonds. I mean, who can say that? Diamonds. Yep. But because of that, she's come through some amazing things. And one of those is a wildfire. And she's going to talk about that. She's actually survived some really horrific things. And one of that is a wildfire that has... I'm going to have her tell you the story because I'm not going to give it away. But she has some amazing tales of wonderful gems and a destructive loss, including a medical tragedy in her life that her family came through. And Elizabeth uses all of this to create some amazing stories. She's a writer, and her writing focuses on that young adult, children, and she's going to talk more about that because I won't say it exactly the way she can, but that young area of kids that I know that I have had in my household. But most importantly, Elizabeth is going to share with us a real life story. So everybody say hi to Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited to be here today, Misty.
Well, I can't tell you how thrilled I am that you're here with us today because not everybody can say that they come through your story with such resilience. And we're also going to talk about where forgiveness fits in that, really situational forgiveness. We lots of times think about forgiveness as forgiving somebody who has hurt us, a person, but we don't necessarily always talk about it in when a situation happens to us, when life itself throws us a curveball, when whether it be an accident or in this case a fire or a medical situation happens to us. And sometimes we get mad at that situation. We have those ugly emotions about it and we kind of reach out. Sometimes we reach out at God and we say, why? Why is this happening? Why? I've tried to do everything the quote right way. I've tried to live my life well and be kind and I pay my taxes. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, why is bad things happening to good people? And you're a perfect example of that. So we're going to kind of dig in and talk about that. Now, you're also a writer, correct?
That is true. I blog about both lifestyle elements of being resilient, but especially I have a heart for children and for teens that love adventure, but might also need to learn some resilience for real life.
Okay, so that was the area of writing that I kind of stumbled over. That's the age group that you write for, which is so important because I know teens, they really struggle just by the nature of their age, that that tough area in life where you don't quite know where you fit. And resilience is a wonderful, what a way to put that, to be a resilient teen. That's a beautiful.
Yes, and puberty starts so much younger. I think it's really important when you are in middle grade, to start. They want to have adventure. They want to try new things. They want to go to parks and all kinds of crazy stuff. But how can you advocate that and let your kids test their boundaries and yet still instill in them some real life things that they may need along the way?
Perfect. Boy, where were you when all my kids were teenagers? But let's get started. Let's really dig in deep and get to the nitty gritty of your life story and how many years ago, because there's a really great quote that I love, and it's from another Elizabeth out there. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, "There is no loss without growth, and no growth without loss." And let's start with that loss story before you could see the growth of it, because you're on the other side.
Yes.
It's always good we talk to people when they've come to the other side, right? But it's hard to go back sometimes and go back to the deep part when you were in the loss. So let's start with that loss. What year was that?
That was in 2007, and the real name of this is the Witch Creek Fires that took over parts of San Diego. 5 fires in Southern California merged together. More than 2 million people were evacuated, and thousands of people lost their homes. Over 300 people in my neighborhood alone. And so we were the ones, however, on the cover of Fox News for weeks to come because our ruins were interesting, I guess, to look at. Politicians stood there and gave speeches even before we could go and sort through the ashes. But if you can imagine, in the middle of the night, being awoken by your neighbors, knowing that there was threats far away, 25 miles away, but within hours, a fire had advanced to across the street, and we had 5 minutes to grab our baby, our son, my mother was visiting, and we were out the door with a few possessions, and we could pretty much tell that it was not good.
Wow. So I do remember on the news that long ago that there was that fire. And I'm going to sneak in a little personal piece. Yeah. Elizabeth and I actually lived in the same neighborhood at this time, and we were also evacuated. But Elizabeth actually lost her whole house. Like, she lost everything very, very quickly. And how heart-wrenching, oh my gosh, my heart wants to come out of my chest right now to know that you lost every heirloom, you lost every picture. Now, if everybody can just feel in yourself, could you imagine losing every picture, everything that you can't replace? I mean, this is things that before digital cameras, people. We're talking the things that you can't replace, the family heirlooms, right?
And the baby footprints, and the little baby book you worked so hard on, and just lots of heirlooms. I had a China painter in the family, and she did intricate, beautiful work. She was featured in magazines. All her work is gone. There's things that I wish I could go back in a moment and grab, but you can't. It's not so much about things; it's about memories and moments, and that relative that you can't hug anymore, but you could touch their little piece of china or their little piece of silver or something that they had given you. Oh,
if you could see me right now, you would know I have tears in my eyes, because it makes me think of the loss of people that we love, and you grab their thing that they loved, and in your heart that you're holding on to a little piece of them, and that must have just been so hard for you and your family. But you had each other. I can just picture that you had each other in the car, and that you were getting away, and you saw those flames, didn't you? Mm-hmm.
We saw the flames, and especially it's burned in my mind the memory in the rear view mirror of flames licking the hills all around us. And my 4-year-old at the time we'd been studying space, and he had a space birthday party, and he said, "Mommy, why are you starting to cry?" Because immediately after we evacuated, we were stuck in traffic for 2 hours trying to turn right out of a certain exit that the police directed us to. And he said, "Mommy, you don't have to cry. You're a brave space girl."
Aww.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to be a brave space girl and just keep shaking and get out of the neighborhood. So, you do what you have to do in that moment to be brave and to not freeze up and to get through that time.
And like I know that I mentioned I was in the same neighborhood. I did not lose my home. I did not, but so many people in our neighborhood did. And at the time, I did not know Elizabeth. I did not know that we would become friends many years later. And the devastation of so many people in that area, it was heartbreaking. But Elizabeth, go on with your story and talk about when you found out that your house was one of the homes that burned to the ground.
Well, we were on the road for 10 hours because we could tell that something devastating was happening. And again, lots of Southern California was in trouble at the same time. And we had a relative in Northern California. We thought, okay, we can plant with them. And after driving, we kept getting phone calls from people because our home was on Fox News and all the, they would say, oh, maybe your lower level will be saved. You may still have some, items from your bedroom. And they say, nope, all your house is gone. This is by 10 o'clock at night. We get the call, we're pulling in, and my husband was driving in our other car in front of us, and he got out of the car and he said, Elizabeth, I'm really sorry, but it's a total and complete loss. And he said, you know what? It was all his anyways. And he was referring to our faith, that it was all God's, and he came instantly to that depth of faith, and I have to tell you, it took me much longer to get there, but I was so proud of him for that attitude, because that was my rock and my stronghold in that time.
But it does now I really want to focus on that piece that you just mentioned, that when we have a situation happen to us, whether it be a medical situation, a severe diagnosis, a loss of such, that moment, that lightning moment. Sometimes I'd call it having your ticket punched. Like, you get your ticket punched for a ride on a train. Like, I'm got my ticket punched. I'm on a ride that I had not planned on going on, right? Like, and whether it be a medical ride, whether yours was a wildfire ride, whatever it is, your ticket is punched and you are now on that ride and you're asking, what the heck? What am I in for? And yes, faith obviously plays a big piece in your role, but does that mean that you don't have those ugly emotions?
Oh, no, and I really want to encourage your listeners that in that moment of loss, you're kind of frozen. You have so many, you might be numb for a while even, and you're acting on autopilot a bit. So if you've programmed into your life faith as a cornerstone, that gives you that anchor, but you're not going to feel like it. You're going to feel awful and have every range of loss emotion, just like with a death. And we've walked through, like you've mentioned, some serious deaths in our family and losses, and really deep losses. But it's just like that. Not because we miss the stuff so much, but because I knew in that moment, okay, I'm going to miss years of my little baby's life because I'm going to be dealing with paperwork. And weren't we grateful that we had insurance? Some people didn't. So stay in that gratitude, but also acknowledge this is a loss. This is a shock. It's not fun, and it is devastating, and you're allowed to own that moment as much as knowing that you can become that phoenix rising from the ashes. And I literally have built a life where we've done that with the help of my family and my faith.
That is such an amazing piece. Because you are on the other side of it, you can definitely see it. It's the moment that you're in it. And many times when I talk about situational forgiveness or any situation and you're stuck in it, I talk about the Grand Canyon a lot. And I talk about being on the donkey. Sometimes I don't usually actually say donkey. Sometimes I say you're sitting on the donkey's, because they call him an ass. Sometimes you're sitting on the ass and you have to go down into the Grand Canyon. You don't see the beauty of the Grand Canyon. You still see it. You see the walls and you're going down in it, and it's not as comfortable. But say you're on the airplane and you're flying over the Grand Canyon, right? So you've already gone down in it and you're on the way back up, and your time to take your ride home, right? And you're on that airplane. You can see the beauty and the grandeur and the whole picture. And that's where you are now, right?
Certainly. Right. I like to call it the Google Earth point of view.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, perfect. That's perfect. I might have to take that, Elizabeth. I might just have to add that to my Grand Canyon view, because now you're at a place where you have come through how many years later?
I think it's it'll be 8 years, might even be 9 years. I think it's this coming October.
Okay. So, and this is the other thing, and anybody here that's listening, whether you're tying on your jogging shoes and going for a run, like I always say, or sipping that cup of tea and listening to this podcast, we all know that journeys, and I talk about the forgiveness journey. Journey is always too much of a nice word. Journey sounds comfortable, right? And relaxing. I always talk about the forgiveness journey being more of a rapid ride, right?
Certainly.
You get splashed and it hurts a little bit, and you get dumped on sometimes. That it's long. It's not necessarily quick. Very rarely is it quick. And you just said it's been years and years. Your journey has been years and years for you to become this resilient person. It was in you. And you mentioned, and Elizabeth had mentioned this to me before, that it became intentional, right?
It became very intentional. You know, we heard in the emergency meetings that a great number of people end up in divorce that go through this, and it can really shatter your family. The other fact we heard was that it takes at least 3.5 years or more to come out of a large emergency situation like this, to just rebuild and kind of be stable. And I tell you, I had to take a breath, because I thought, 3 years, I'm going to lose. My child won't be a baby anymore. My little list. And you can, in that moment, decide. As we looked around the room, my husband and I saw a lot of people over that first year decide to kind of remain in that victim mindset. And we looked at each other and said, you know what? That is not for us. We are going to learn to survive, and we're going to learn to do more than that. We're going to go on a quest to find out how to thrive. And I think the great thing is to know that you don't have to have all the answers, but you have to engage the process. Don't run away from it. It will just follow you, it will drag you down, and you'll be in that pit of unforgiveness, not only about what you lost, but you'll lose more now, in the now.
Right, and I thought that's so beautifully said. Thank you, Elizabeth. Many times when we're stuck in the unforgiveness and what happened to us, which is absolutely true, that it is unfair, that you can say what happened was unfair, was sad, was terribly sad, and many times whether somebody hurt you or in this case a situation, it was terribly sad, and you can admit all those things, but you still have the power to choose. And that's what forgiveness gives you. And you said that perfectly, that you made an intentional choice to thrive. Beautiful. Thank you for saying that. And that many times in situations, your power is taken away from you. Right?
True.
Right.
Yes, and you're going to feel powerless, and you're going to feel helpless. But the thing is, life is not all about feelings. Right. You don't have to be defined by that. You're also not defined by your loss. You will be at first. You'll just be swamped. But as you paw your way through it, you can create moments and create pockets in your life. I call them right turns, where you get out and, like you're saying, you go for a walk. You have a lovely cup of tea. You deal with the darkness that you must face. I'm not saying run away from it, but give yourself a break. Go fly a kite with your kids. Go do something special to embrace beauty. And beauty is a really big part of my new website and things that I'm involved in. I want to help others have just that little injection of beauty, because it can help you with the darkness. It can help you recharge your batteries, like you plug your phone in every day.
Oh, perfect. And lots of times we talk about situations as, this is not what I expected.
Yes,
right?
And you get angry, and that's righteous anger. You didn't expect that. Right. And I had people who said to me, Elizabeth, I think, now these are unfortunately people in the church, and sometimes they can be very kind, and sometimes you can get comments that are difficult, but they said, you must have a lot of faith, because things keep happening to you. And, God must have a lot of faith in you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and take that the positive way, in that they think that I have the fortitude to survive and thrive out of that. But, that stings, and you have to pre-forgive some people who can't walk with you into the darkness, and they may have they don't know what to say. They want to help. They have a good heart, you know.
Sometimes people say the darndest things.
They do.
But they usually come from their own background and their own belief systems, and they're trying to say something, and lots of times it gets mixed up from their heart, their brain, and out their mouth, and all mixed up in the middle as it's coming out of their mouth.
And I've certainly done that as well.
Yeah,
you know?
so have I.
Yeah.
So have I. Never from a bad place. But when I say people expect certain things, they do. And when it doesn't happen, they get very angry about their life. And they tend to want to blame a situation. And a good example is these wildfires. They happened for many different reasons. They happened because of the weather. They happened because of the conditions that day. Some people blamed the electric company. They blamed a lot of different things. And so a lot of people want justice for what happened. And you get stuck in that circle of if I could get an I'm sorry, then they feel like then they could forgive. Did you ever find yourself in that place?
Well, this is one of those times where forgiveness is a tool. It's a tool in your tool belt, and it's that intentionality. And I come back to, don't let feelings always drive you. You know, make room for them, process them. But if you're going to live a life that is healthy, and you know, that's a gift to yourself, that health, that forgiveness, it's a hook in you. If you don't let it happen, you're that fish that's going to run away with you in the background. You know, you're always going to be looking backwards. And we just didn't want to do that. But that anger, yeah, I want to say, okay, that anger is real. I certainly had that. I was very frustrated because we'd had some problems with our son, had been in the hospital when he was a baby, and it seemed like we almost lost him, and he was a NICU. Anyways, there was a lot of issues with him when he was really little on machines and things, and he was healed. And so I felt like, okay, now we can finally have fun. And then within a few weeks, here we are in this large tragedy. And I really could have stayed. I can't say I didn't have moments where I was shaky, and it was dark. It was very black all around me. And that's where, as a writer, I love to read. You know, I had authors that I could turn to. I tried to create spaces, whether it's in reading or in walking, or over time I learned to embrace a lifestyle that allowed me to process the darkness, to admit it, not run away from it, but then to not let it define me. And for me, beauty was a big part of that, like I mentioned. It could be a walk on the beach. It could be a museum. And it could also be walking with someone else that had been through something worse, you know, and just reading about their stories. So also I have a verse that I love, which is, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. That's in Philippians. And to me, that verse is alive. You press on. If you're pressing on, that's like you're a runner, and you're engaging, you're going forward. You're not looking backwards. But it's a determined moment. It's a moment where you shift your focus and you say, I'm going to look ahead. Occasionally, it'll be like layers of an onion. I'm going to be pulled on a detour. And you forgive yourself in that moment, too. Okay, whoops, I spent the day crying. I picked up something. The hardest thing for me was the firefighters. I just love them. They tried so hard to save some things for us. They accidentally saved all of our old tax records and things like that we were ready to throw away out of the garage. But I had to go through all these documents and these boxes that were covered in ash and smelled, so that smell would get on me and on my clothes and in my hair as I sorted through the little bitty things that they tried, or, you know, and they did save some items that we are so grateful for. We're lucky to have anything. Many people have nothing from that. But that's having that in your face all the time. You know, you have to be tough, but emotionally tough, and not the kind of tough that turns off emotions, the kind that turns into it. You turn into the moment and try not to let fear drive you.
That you said that so beautifully. And again, Elizabeth is a speaker, by the way. If you haven't noticed, she's come through her loss and she has grown so much, just like one of my favorite quotes, because she has grown from her loss and she didn't become a victim from it. She learned from it. She learned that forgiving the situation, that it happened. It did happen to her, but it didn't happen to her intentionally. It wasn't like the world was out to get her, to ruin her.
But people did ask me that, and I must warn your listeners here that people were brazen and said, "What did you do that this happened to you?" And I'm like, "It happened to 2,000 people. I was not the only one."
Right.
And you just kind of smile and say, "Oh, how special for you that you think that," and kind of walk on. And I've had other people that oh gosh, we had people that would not forgive us for. I just wasn't able to go back in the neighborhood all the time for play dates and things and with friends, and their houses were okay. They just had a little smoke smell, and they just didn't, their houses were okay. But for me, I had to go past my ruins and my ashes and all these other metaphorical things going on. It wasn't just stuff. It was a piece of our life that was gonna be shifted, like a huge tectonic shift, So people, it's almost like PTSD. You don't, unless you've walked through some of that tunnel where it's hard to give other people space. And I don't mean, to give them the ability to learn to articulate how they're going to heal and what they need to heal. It's different for everyone. But I love the people that reached out to us, that brought us flowers, that brought us, coupons so we could buy clothing, and who took care of my children so I could go buy underwear and toiletries and just the basics of running a house. And, I am so grateful because in the darkness, we found great light, great kindness. My sons and I made a whole website of thanking people called makeusmile.com. And there's nothing, we're not making any money off it. It's nothing like that. It was more, I wanted them to remember, especially since my youngest was a baby, that people gave to us, and they didn't have to. We didn't know half of them. Companies, they went and found. I have a few photos, for example, of my oldest child as a baby because a large company that we had photography sessions at went and researched and found, maybe 5 photos. So I didn't have any photos of him for like his first almost 5 years of life without their help. And so, that becomes a treasure. Wow. And that's a kindness. That's a kindness really I couldn't have asked for.
And then that's exactly, through her loss, she saw some light because people showed up. And many times through some dark moments, the light shines through that brokenness. And if that, in the middle of your dark moments, if you could just stop for a second and look for those pinpoints of light and hold on to those. That's the beauty that Elizabeth is talking about right there. Those lights are what will guide you through that rapid, rough journey, that rapid ride of forgiveness. And you will heal through that, because forgiveness really is that link between love and healing. And, we all want to heal from our pain. We don't like to live in pain. We all mire in there for a while, and eventually we're like, we don't want to stay here anymore. Yeah. But many times we don't know how to heal, right? And Elizabeth is offering that exact recipe through her story. And I hope that her story is helping everyone as you're listening, because I really want to offer everyone real life stories, so that you can translate it to your life, whatever your situation is, because we're human beings. And that's the other thing. Our human experience is about loss and growth and learning. And some people, unfortunately, have to go through some bigger things. And Elizabeth is a really good example. I bet she did not think that a wildfire was on her checklist of life.
No. And frankly, I did not want to become a resilience expert. I was really happy with, fantasy writing. But I got to tell you, I know how to put my characters through a lot now. So I can do that. No fear.
No fear. It gave her some good material to write with. Yeah. So, and, I did not believe that ever in a million years did I think I was going to become a forgiveness solution person. And obviously in my life, forgiveness became a big piece because I struggled with forgiveness more than I ever thought that I was. I thought I was this happy person going through life when I really had a deep pit in my stomach, and it really came from those ugly feelings of struggling with forgiveness and control and expectations both in life and with other people. So Elizabeth, that was just a beautiful example of situational forgiveness. Can you tell us now where your family is and what you do now with all your resiliency work and what that looks like?
Well, now our kids are much older. They're pretty well adjusted, and they have been part of what we try to do to be grateful and to help other people. At elizabethvantassel.com, I have a whole bunch of resources to help both families and teens and tweens to not only embrace beauty and have fun, but if they are in those darker chasms of moments, I can walk with them through that. And I love that you give examples, real life examples, and I like to do that too, as well, to help people say, wow, they did it, okay, I can do it. Or they have books that have cool characters for my kids to encourage them. I might want to read their things. And so that's part of what I do. I also speak to groups and kids and, anyone who needs that extra boost and wants to translate it to an audience, because my heart is really in this to help others have a shorter path through darkness. I don't want them to lose hope. I've known people who have, and I just don't want them to. I feel, I don't know, I just have this burden to do it, and it won't go away no matter what I do. So I've pursued it and embraced it.
And I love how you bring God and faith into your world, and how your faith also helped you walk through those dark times. Lots of times I think people think that your faith is supposed to bring you through everything, that you're not supposed to have dark, sad times if you have faith. And I love that you showed that, yes, I had faith, but I was still stuck in a dark, sad time. And but that your faith was part of your anchor, and that was your anchor. And thank you for sharing that piece too. And it is just such a beautiful story. And thank you for sharing that with us today, and that everyone can be resilient. And I love resiliency, and I'm going to add that as a charm on the bracelet towards love and healing and forgiveness and gratefulness and resiliency. And really, you are a forgiveness warrior and a fabulous forgiver. That's what we like to say here at the Forgiveness Solution Podcast. And again, so they can find you at elizabethvantassel.com.
Yes.
Right? And you have a beautiful website. It's very interactive. It's for teens and tweens. And there's tons of stuff for them to do there. Trust me, there's so much to do there. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we go about your site and where they can find you?
Well, I also have some products. Let's say that you are going through that difficult time and you wish that a coach could come alongside you and help you shorten your path. I've got a lot of free things on there to help you, a great blog that talks about these kind of things, but also, I have specific steps in case you know someone that it has gone through a natural disaster and is going to be rebuilding their life, or even if they've gone through a divorce, just a major life change. Come and look at elizabethvantassel.com. A lot for adults, and of course my heart is with kids, so there's a lot of fun there for them too.
Great. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Elizabeth, for sharing your story and for your friendship over the years. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me on the Forgiveness Solution Podcast. You can find me at revmisty.com, also on Facebook at revmisty, and then also on Instagram. I'm all over that social media.
I wish you bluebirds in the spring to hear your song, a song to sing, and then a kiss more than this. I wish you love.